Hello and welcome back into the Cina-Verse. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, even though it's been a month late.
You're late.
Better late than never, Nick.
And with every Happy New Year comes a new list of films. And in this video, we'll be talking about the top 10 anticipated films of 2023.
Let's begin.
Yes.
So, here's a mobile, I have a piece of paper.
To explain, technically this isn't a top 10, it's a top 5, but our top 5, so it equals to top 10.
Because 5 plus 5 equals 10. Who starts?
You can start?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Yes.
Okay, you start. So, you're number 5.
Top 5 anticipated film from my part is Dune Part 2.
To be honest, I was expecting it to be higher.
Yes, but the thing is, I tried to be as less biased with the list. Try
Fair
to
enough.
open to everyone's anticipation. For me, it would be higher, but it is very specific to certain people, especially those fans who really likes the books. I think that's why I did it top 5, because the success that Part 1 had, a lot of people really loved it, especially those who actually read the books. It was quite accurate according to those fans. So I thought that Dune Part 2, and I've seen people very excited for this film. So that's why it's my top 5.
So, at my number 5, he's a new character within the DC Comics. New character when it comes to films. It's Blue Beetle.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very excited for this because I got introduced to Blue Beetle in Young Justice, the series, and he became kind of like a character that I always wanted to see more of. And I think a lot of people feel the same. I'm excited for this practically not only because he's a new character, we're going to get introduced to a new character, but because of the actor that is going to play Blue Beetle. And I hope that I'm going to say his name correctly. Sholo Maridenia. I hope to God I said his name right.
I hope we didn't offend him.
He's not going to watch this podcast. There's a series on Netflix called Cobra Kai.
Okay.
And he is one of the main characters. And he's one of my favorite characters in the series. He's a very talented actor at such a young age. He's already a breakout star because of Cobra Kai. And Blue Beetle could be his next step. Blue Beetle was never made in a live action film before. He was never portrayed in live action. So he could make the role his own. Yeah, I'm quite excited for Blue Beetle.
Nice.
You're number 4.
Okay. I thought this would be a bit higher, but I put in number 4, and it's Guardian of the Galaxy. The reason it's top 4 is that I believe past films, just as a standalone part of the MCU, really did very well. Each one didn't disappoint. But I thought that success of the Guardians of the Galaxy's franchise would make people really want to go watch it. That's why it's on my top 4.
My number 4, I hope it's on your list as well, because he's one of your favorite directors. It's Oppenheimer. Okay.
Just higher than
It's
yours.
just higher, obviously. I put Oppenheimer in my top 5 for 3 reasons. First off, because it's a Christopher Nolan film, and I think Christopher Nolan,
One of the best directors.
he's one
in
of the
film.
best directors in the world. He can do no wrong.
You're never going to get disappointed with Christopher.
Well, I was a little bit disappointed with Tenet, but I wasn't the only one. It was still a fantastic film. But out of all the films, I think it would be...
I think it was the most different. That's why a lot of people were...
just confusing a lot.
Yes. It is a Christopher Nolan thing to do, to be honest.
No, that's why I love him. That's why I love
so,
him, you know.
So that's why, even though it is confusing, it's still loved.
So, back on Oppenheimer. Yes, the first and biggest reason is because it's Christopher Nolan. He's fantastic. Second is because it's a historical film. I love it when they touch upon these areas, especially when you have Christopher Nolan as director. So Oppenheimer, I think it can be the perfect film for Christopher Nolan because it's right up his alley. It's based on historical events, so he can have fun with it. And the casting, you've seen the casting of Oppenheimer?
No, I like to watch everything close to the release date.
Do I tell you or not? Because I
it's
listed
okay.
the name. Cillian Murphy's playing Oppenheimer.
Oh.
I don't know if he appeared in all of Nolan's films, but he's one of those actors that work closely with Christopher Nolan. He appears in a lot of his films. So there's Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, Rami Malek. The casting is Wow.
This is going to be very short because my top three is Oppenheimer. To be honest, like you said everything that you had to say about Oppenheimer, and like I don't really need to say, like he's one of the best directors. He's very famous for his cinematography and visuals, and very into his like scientific principle, likes to put science into it. But this one is going to be, as you said, historic, on history. So it's very interesting how he's going to do it. And it's on history rather than on science. Most of his films, like you have Inception, Tenet, Interstellar, it's all based on a physics principle, kind of.
My number 3 is Guardians of the Galaxy,
Oh.
Volume 3. You mentioned that the first two Guardians did not disappoint. They weren't disappointing, but if I would rank all of the Marvel films, I'm kind of 50-50 with them, to be completely honest. They're not my least favorite, but they're not my favorite.
Yeah.
Yes, they're funny, they're entertaining, I'll give them that. James Gunn, brilliant. But I don't know. The first Guardians, I really enjoyed it.
It's the second. Yes, the second one.
The second one was
not as great as the first one, but I
don't know how to feel about
enjoyed
it, the second one. But the third one, I can feel the hype because it's going to be a totally different Guardians of the Galaxy. It's going to be very sad. It's going to be very dramatic. Theory, which I think is true. Certain characters, main characters of the Guardians, are going to die.
Oh.
That's the thing. Is it going to be the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy? I'm also excited, but for Guardians, because of a new character, Adam Warlock. He was hinted in the second Guardians of the Galaxy film. Okay, you didn't see the trailer, but in the trailer he appears. Dope.
So I think from my top 2 and top 1 is very valid with what the people anticipates as well. So my top 2 is John Wick. He didn't watch the Wick films. Disappointing, yes, I know. But for those who actually watched John Wick, they know that every fan of John Wick will always look forward to the next film. John Wick is a very detailed, choreographic action film. Like the action is not one of those like Marvel, just shoot randomly and see what you hit, or like Star Wars, you shoot and see what you hit. And obviously John Wick being played by Keanu Reeves, you're not going to hate Keanu Reeves.
Who hates Keanu Reeves?
You're breathtaking.
Tell me a film that Keanu played in and was hated. You can't. There is none. I think every John Wick film now is like the top anticipated film of the year.
No, I'm looking forward to John Wick. Okay, it's not in my list. I'm going to be completely honest. My number 2 is Flash. Flash was in our top 5, 10, whatever, most anticipated films for last year, but
yes.
it got delayed. It flashed its way. It made its way into the 2023 slot. This film has been through a lot. Changed directors and writers I don't know how many times. Got delayed. Ezra Miller apparently being a prick. Last year I mentioned, he's one of my favorite actors. What I'm excited about is because The Flash is one of my favorite characters in general. I want to see The Flash on the big screen in his own solo film. More so than excited, I'm curious about what's going to happen, because it's like, I've read stuff that they're going to use the Flash film to reboot everything. So something is going to happen in the film.
It's going to be very interesting how that will
it's going to
DC.
reboot the entire franchise. I'm more curious than excited. That's why it's very high on my list. And obviously there's going to be Michael Keaton's Batman in it as well.
So number 1, this was same in one of in our first list of last year, but it got delayed, and it's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Into Cina-Verse was the inspiration I had to come up with this genre's name. First time watching it in the big screen, it was I couldn't get my eyes off the screen. Every scene I went through,
You loved.
I loved it. Especially, I never saw a film so very comic like this design, how they did the films. Like it's like actually opening a comic book basically.
You didn't see the trailer, I guess.
No.
My number one, surprise, it wasn't in your top 5.
There were many things I wanted.
There
in
were
my
a lot
top.
of choices. There was
a lot of choices, but there were many things.
Okay, so my number one is Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
That was going to be my top 5.
And practically because, okay, we're moving into phase 5. Phase 4 is done. We're moving into phase 5. It's a new phase, new characters, new villains, and that's the main thing. The villain, Kang, is the new big bad. It's interesting that they're going to introduce him so early on. Okay, he was introduced in Loki, but we didn't see this version that we're going to see in Ant-Man. It's a different Kang. So we're going to see this new big bad. It's the biggest challenge Ant-Man and the Wasp are going to have, because the first 2 Ant-Man films, they were a challenge to both Ant-Man and to Wasp. Okay, fine. And then the events of Infinity War and Endgame came along. This time it's only him going up against Kang. It's him versus the big bad.
Big responsibility.
With great power comes great responsibility. And again, you didn't see the trailer, I think.
No,
obviously.
Okay,
There's MODOK in the trailer, so again, a new villain as well. Very interesting. So we're going to get introduced into two new villains. Maybe we're going to get introduced into new heroes as well, new characters. Because they're going to introduce Kang, this is the first step towards Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, and Avengers Secret Wars.
And to be honest, I do like Ant-Man. Like, a lot of people, it's like he's not a major, you know, in the Avengers, he's not a major, like, it's not Tony Stark or Captain America, but he's very...
Right, this is going to be his biggest test.
So those were our top 10 anticipated films of 2023.
So please, like, comment, and subscribe. And comment down below on what your most anticipated films for 2023 are. Thanks.
We will see you in the next video.